So this afternoon, I thought what I would do is talk a little bit about some contract items if you were to buy a house or sell a home in Arizona. And what I thought I'd focus on today are just some of the contingencies that are built into our contract. A lot of buyers come to me and they're wondering, if I buy a home, how firm is the contract? Is there any outs for me along the way? Are there any contingencies built into the contract? So I thought today I might just address some of those as they do come up a lot when I talk to buyers. What is a contingency? A contingency is a future event that may or may not occur. If that event occurs, it could either create a contingency where you would cancel or move forward with something. So that's kind of it as it relates to contract and the contract laws. So let's talk about some of the contingencies that are right off the start. So when an offer is submitted and the seller accepts the buyer's offer, that becomes the contract. Now it's mutually agreed upon. One of the first events that happen is our financing contingency. It's the beginning of the contract. We talk about financing. It's a loan contingency. That means that the buyer is obligated to apply for a loan within the first 3 days of a contract being accepted. If not, it could cause the contract to fall apart. Unfulfilled loan contingency, that's the second part of the financing contingency. Unfulfilled loan contingency means that towards the end of a deal in Arizona, if loan documents are not delivered, if the buyer does not get loan approval 3 days before close of escrow, then the buyer could cancel the contract at that point. We have the unfulfilled loan contingency built into our Arizona contract as a protection for buyers who are getting financing, and at the end of the deal, they cannot get financing. That will allow them to cancel the contract. So it's very important for sellers and sellers agents like myself, if I'm representing a seller, to make sure that that buyer is very qualified. We have discussions with the lender to make sure that they can move forward and everyone's comfortable, the pre-qualification's firm, because that is one of our major contingencies that could derail a deal at the very end, actually. So another contingency that's built into our contract for buyers is the appraisal contingency. Basically what that means, the buyer's in a contract, they've ordered the appraisal, which establishes the value of the home for the lender and to justify the loan value. And if the home does not appraise for value, then that's a contingency. It's an event that occurred. The buyer can cancel the contract. But not necessarily the buyer has to. A lot of people think it's an automatic cancellation at that point. One of three things can happen. We're either going to lower the price, the seller's going to lower the price to the appraised value. We're going to negotiate some happy medium where the buyer comes up a bit, the seller comes down a bit, we meet somewhere in the middle, or the buyer brings in the additional value all the way up to the sales price. Let's say we have a $500,000 loan amount, it appraises for $490,000. The buyer would bring in the extra $10,000 to meet the actual price of the value of the home. Those are our major contingencies within a contract. Then we have some built-in items such as our due diligence period, where the buyer gets to have the home inspection, ask for any possible repairs or credits against repairs. And it's the buyer's time to really look at the home very carefully, the surrounding area, any issues they don't like, or it's really dig into their due diligence. And not just the home, but the area, the house, the neighborhood, the construction aspect. There's a lot that goes into due diligence. So you want to make sure you work with an agent that understands that and has a good team of home inspectors and is familiar with how to negotiate repairs that might come up. One that's not in our contract, but there's an addendum for it. It's called the buyer contingency addendum. This is very common right now. We're in a balanced market. So we're not in a seller's market, we're not in the buyer's market, we're pretty much balanced. Over the past year, I've done a number of these because in this market, it's not uncommon. There's two parts to this contingency addendum. What it means is if you own your home, you want to sell your home to buy a home, right? You have to sell the home to buy a home. So in a buyer contingency addendum, many times buyers don't want to sell the home and then risk not being able to find the home they want to move into. So we go house hunting, we find a home that they like, we put an offer on it, contingent upon the sale of their home. The first part is we already have your home on the market, you already have an offer on it, but it hasn't closed escrow yet, so we make the offer contingent upon the successful close of escrow of the buyer's property. That's probably the most common one we see. The other one is contingent upon accepted offer for buyer's property. That's the one I most recently did for a client where we went out, we didn't have their home on the market, but we went out home shopping, we found the home, it kind of came up suddenly. I was able to negotiate with the other agent to accept our offer contingent upon them even getting an offer on the property and successfully closing it, which we ultimately did, so everybody was happy. But it's a way for a buyer to buy a home without selling the home prior to. There are some things that go into it, which I can explain it more offline. If you have any questions about that, feel free to reach out. It's a little more technical, but it's a great way for buyers who are not convinced that they will find the home they want to find, so they're kind of nervous about selling their home. It's pretty common to see, and I've, again, been successfully negotiating a lot of those this past year. So those are some of the contingencies built into our contract, and I'll talk more about our contracts in future videos, but I do get a lot of questions about that, so I kind of wanted to address some of those in this video. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. And like always, if you like my content, please feel free to subscribe below. Thanks.